It's been 4 months. Will Smith is finally back.
Why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk.
I would imagine. I can just imagine, like, from Chris's end, like, being constantly asked about it, even after all this time. I mean, people are approaching you in the street and like, yo, how did it feel to get slapped by Will Smith? Like, I can just imagine how annoying that would be. So I can sympathize with Chris Rock for not wanting to talk about it.
Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Also, I feel like we should cut Will some slack. I mean, it was spur of the moment, and he had thought that he did the right thing. So I would cut him a bit of slack. And you know what? I think it's a good thing that Will has decided to be the bigger man. Oh, not in this situation, I guess. He has decided to apologize, and he realizes that he was wrong. Like, if you check back from a few months ago, people were wild on Twitter. They were like, oh, he did the right thing. He was defending his woman. And his son even went out of his way to type, and that's how it's done. But here you go. If the man himself is saying he was wrong, I mean, what can you really say about that?
I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did. And, you know, that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and, you know, I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment.
Hey man, shout out to Will Smith. At least he can realize the consequences of his actions. I think the enforcement of the repercussions that he had to face for his actions maybe forced him to think about it more and think about how what he did affected the people around him, Chris Rock's family and his own family. I think it gave him some time to think about that. And it makes sense that for these past 4 months that he was thinking about all of that. And I can respect him for at least realizing that he was wrong and realizing that his own actions were detrimental to his own reputation and the reputation of his family. And shout out Will Smith.
I want to apologize to Chris's family, specifically Tony Rock. You know, we had a great relationship. You know, Tony Rock was my man. And this is probably irreparable. I spent the last 3 months replaying.
Although I must admit, that was a horrible slap. Like, just to joke around for a bit, that was a horrible slap. It had no follow through, and he didn't load it up well. He wasn't in a good stance, and it was just a horrible slap. And I think I'll put up a tweet on the screen just describing that horrible slap.
And understanding the nuances and the complexities of what happened in that moment. And I'm not going to try to unpack all of that right now, but I can say to all of you, there is no part of me that thinks that was the right way to behave in that moment. There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults.
And this is all that it comes down to, him realizing that, you know, he didn't really handle the situation well. I thought when he was going up on stage, I thought he was just going to like dap him up and maybe whisper in his ear like, yo, don't talk about my wife like that. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, we saw what happened, the slap that was heard across the world, according to Jamari. Yeah, at least he realizes that he should have and could have handled it differently.
After Jada rolled her eyes, did she tell you to do something? No.
Not explicitly, but yeah, she totally did.
It's like, you know, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history with Chris.
Could there have been a beef between Will Smith and Chris Rock before this? Did you hear what he just said?
From my own experiences, from my history with Chris, Jada had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, babe.
You know what I'm saying? That's tough.
A part of me was just like, he's taking accountability for his actions, you know, he's building himself up, and then at the end he just goes down atrocious. And it's just like, sorry, I didn't mean for you to cheat on me with my son's best friend.
What would you say to the people who looked up to you before the slap, or people who expressed that you let them down? So there's two things. One, disappointing people is my central trauma. I hate when I let people down. So it hurts. It hurts me psychologically and emotionally to know I didn't live up to people's image and impression of me.
You can't really live up to anyone's expectations. Well, not anyone, but you can't live up to most people's expectations. So I get the sense of personal responsibility that he feels, but I wouldn't really be hard on myself if I were Will Smith in this situation. Because ultimately, he did what in the moment he thought was right. I mean, he didn't have that much time to think about it, but I mean, he thought about it for a bit of time, or whatever duration that is, and decided that was the best course of action, which he realizes now that wasn't the best course of action. And as much as it was wrong, I wouldn't really hold him to that much higher of a standard, because he's just a human being, just like you, just like me. He's just as fallible as any of us in that situation to have made that kind of decision, especially if it's something that he felt in his heart was actually truly disrespectful to his wife and, you know, his family, or to him personally. So I get that he doesn't like letting people down and he wants to live up to the best expectations of people, but I won't be too hard on myself if I were him.
The work I'm trying to do is, I am deeply remorseful, and I'm trying to be remorseful without being ashamed of myself.
What I just said.
Right? I'm human, and I made a mistake. So I would say to those people, I know it was confusing. I know it was shocking. But I promise you, I am deeply devoted and committed to putting light and love and joy into the world. And, you know, if you hang on, I promise we'll be able to be friends again.
But hey, I do get that he doesn't want to let the people that look up to him down. I mean, me personally, watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I really, well, I wouldn't say really like looked up to him, but I really liked him. I really liked the kind of persona that he had on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and, you know, even other films that he acted on. I really liked him, and I should say when I saw him do what he did, it did kind of give his reputation a bit of a knockdown, as far as I'm concerned. But I do understand that, you know, he's human and he's just like any of us. So he's just as fallible as any of us to have made that same mistake. A lot of the people were saying he really came out after 3 months with a classic YouTuber apology. But I mean, you can paint it in that light. I mean, I did hear that he has some documentary or something that's coming out in the end of the year. And I myself predicted, or well, I guess you can say it's a prediction on Twitter, where I was like, Chris Rock and Will Smith, but I have a show by the end of the year. So I guess we'll see if that'll happen. Having taken like a video, you could have scripted it and you could have, you know, he's a professional actor. So, you know, that may not be how he feels, but I would like to imagine that that's how he feels. But I mean, you can make the case that it's all fake and he's just doing it to be in the good graces of Hollywood so that he can get back into that space. So you can make the argument for that, but I really do think that he does mean it. And yeah, I think Hollywood should give him another shot. Comment accountability if you're still here, or like your thoughts on the video, whether you agree or disagree. A lot of you have caught on to my outro, so I'll just like cut it at random.